So I started my project back in methods. What I did is I looked at what type of classroom am I in, what's the teacher currently doing, and how does that reflect effective teaching strategies set by NCTM, and then also some of the other researchers that I had put into my, what's it called? Lit review, yes. So one of the people that I looked into was Joe Bowler, and if some of you guys may have seen her at the OCTM conference, she spoke as one of the Capstone speakers, and she was really good then. But what I learned from her is she did a research in England where she looked at how does effective teaching, so using some of those project-based, inquiry-based lessons, and how does that affect the students? Their words are hard today. How does that affect their self-efficacy? And so she observed one school that used these strategies and then another school that didn't. And one school that used these inquiry-based lessons, they actually tended to think math is a lot more fun. They saw the usefulness of it, but they also saw that they learned better, and they were able to also recall the information. And so that's what I kind of did in my classroom. I looked to see what aspects of my classroom were there. So were they talking in class? Were they providing answers? Were they really trying to think about what the answer was and why that's the answer? And then also just getting them to talk to each other. That's a big thing within the classroom, I think, is getting your students comfortable to the point where they're okay with giving a wrong answer. I know for me, if I had a wrong answer in high school, it was like, I'm just going to hide myself right now because everyone else is judging me or my teachers think I'm stupid. So I want to create that safe environment for my students. From that point on, what I did is I started implementing some of these new strategies. When I got there, really it was a lot of just sit there, take notes, observe what the teacher's doing, and kind of just accept it as truth. And I kind of wanted to switch that up a little bit. So what I did is I started Google Form. I sat all the students down one day and we got on the laptops and they answered questions to like, what is their current thought of math? Is it useful? Is it something that they see themselves doing in the future? And also, how do they view themselves and their ability to learn math? So do they think they have a good self-efficacy? Do they think that they're the worst person in math ever? And then from there, I also asked them how they think they learn math best, whether it's doing hands-on projects, whether it's just sitting in the classroom listening to what the teacher was doing before. So I took all that data and looked at it and saw a lot of the kids really enjoyed, or so they thought they enjoyed, just listening there, sitting, and doing problems. And I think there's some truth to that. I think that students do learn, and I think there's some math that you just have to kind of endure it a little bit. And so I did incorporate some of that from that point on. But I also saw a lot of students say, I really enjoy doing hands-on projects, doing things that show me where it's going to be used. And so I started using some of those strategies. Some of the couple examples that I had were, I did a Monopoly project, which was part of my TPA, and we looked at the price of the property and how far away from go it is. And you'll actually find there's actually a pretty strong correlation between the price and how far away from go it is. But that's not including railroads and then also the utilities. Because those are some outliers. We have a $200 property somewhere in the middle of a $400 and $100 property. And so we did that project. We also did another one where we looked at 3 different hotels and which would be the best place to hold the fundraiser. So we looked at different prices and they were all linear functions. And that was kind of a cool introduction to learning systems of equations, because they're looking at different equations, looking at the graphs of them, seeing where they overlap and seeing which one's higher and why is it higher. And so we did some of these different activities. I got them talking more. We put them in groups, and that was a struggle for them. They really didn't like. Well, they enjoyed the groups a little too much because they got to talk with their friends. And so I encourage you guys, if you do groups in the future, especially in your student teaching, and all the student teachers probably are agreeing with me, it's just a socialization time. And so you really have to kind of structure that. But with all that being said, after I did all the data, I did all the teaching, I did the Google Forms again. And I saw from a lot of the students that about 66% of them had a better view of math, a better self-efficacy. About 20% of them stayed the same, and then I had one student who was just stubborn, and I think that he either answered wrong at the beginning, saying, oh, math is useful, I'm good at math, and then after the end of it, he's like, yeah, I hate math, I suck at it. So I'm like, what's that about? But as a majority, I only saw increasing or staying the same. And so a lot of the students really said that they enjoyed the hands-on activities, they enjoyed some of the activities that showed them how it is useful. And so it seems like whenever I explain my project, I feel like I'm explaining the obvious. Like if you do fun things in math, the students will like it. But for me, I didn't have that in high school, so I didn't really have anything to compare it to. All I had was the action projects, or even just sitting in Dr. Brayer's class where we are doing these activities. And we do see it is more interesting. But I kind of wanted to see it with high schoolers who are still in that mindset of, okay, I'm in math class, I don't see where I'm going to use it. So it was just really cool to see what the students are learning and how they're seeing it through their eyes. I guess some of the limitations for my project were all the snow days, like Haley said, it just gets in the way of doing the things you want to do. I had a lot more projects planned that I wanted to do, but with all the time that I had to do it, it kind of got in the way because I just needed to get through the material so we could stay on track. Also, with TPA, it sounds like a little bit of an excuse, but that took a lot of my time as well. So make sure that when you are doing your projects, keep that in mind. How can I maybe double dip a little bit? And then finally, another limitation was some of my students just didn't want to get involved with it. As much as I tried to get them to talk and try and get involved in the classroom, they still just fought me with it. And so I think overall it's just one of those projects, or even just one of those things that as much as you try to get some of the students involved, they're still going to struggle, but you kind of have to bring in some of those interests that they enjoy. And even just meet with them one-on-one. If they don't want to work with people, that's fine, but you still gotta show them that you care about them and that you want to work for them. Any questions?
Josh, I have a question. Tell us a little bit more, just briefly, about the TPA and juggling that, because I know that continues to be an issue, because that layer wasn't there 2 years ago when we got off the ground. Other advice, double dipping certainly.
Yeah.
Starting earlier, what advice would you have on that?
So for me, make sure you know what your unit is, and make sure you kind of pace where you're going to be at. For me, I kind of chose a couple lessons further out because I knew it was going to be a more interesting topic. And so with all the snow days, I wasn't really able to get to that topic until about mid-February, and so I was rushing those last couple weeks to get TPA done on the deadline. And so make sure that you're choosing wisely what topic you're going to do. Don't expect the weather to be perfect. So just a lot of planning ahead of time. Do as much as you can.